Abate la rimette dentro, esce Radu, porta vuota, gol! Gol! Abbiamo battuto il gatto nero, li abbiamo battuti tutti Alessio, grande Alessio, è bella la vita, lava quella zolla Alessio, lavala quella zolla Alessio.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Sempremilan Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Torgard. You can find me on Twitter at Torgard45. And surprise, I'm not actually the host. We do have Ollie. We just want to switch it up on the intro a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw you off a little bit there with that one. I'm guessing there were a lot of people who thought, oh, Ollie's dropped out of another episode. But no, I am here. We just wanted to throw you off. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. And we've also got Madison with us.
Yeah, it would have worked out as a better joke if you guys didn't acknowledge the fact that you did it. But, you know, it was still pretty funny. You guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Madison_DT.
Pretty fractious fan base at the moment, as you can tell there by Maddie's passive-aggressive comments towards us. It's always a good start to the episode, but, you know, we don't expect anything different at this point. Anyway, we've had a game Sunday night. We've lost another game, 50 feet in 9. Went to Roma to play Roma. Couldn't quite conquer them this time. Lost 2-1. Edin Dzeko got the opener. Was unmarked at the far post. Kind of an inexplicable goal, but we'll sort of come on to the goals in a bit more detail. Theo Hernandez equalised, and then not long after that, unfortunately, giveaway, Zaniolo pounced to score the winner, and we couldn't generate anything really towards the end. So yeah, it's another defeat. We're in 13th place. Lads, the second division's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to get a Serie B title. You know, it's been a while since we had one of those. So
yeah, I hope ESPN picks up those rights as well.
Oh, dang, I didn't even think about it. I don't even know how I'm going to watch us next season in Serie B.
It's going to be rough.
Just don't. I'm almost there this season, honestly.
The site will shut down. Everything will just crash.
The Sempre Serie B website will just change it to a full Serie B thing.
Yeah. I mean, people thought that the Primavera getting relegated was a bit insulting. And I know we have been relegated before, but obviously the first time wasn't really, you know, because we didn't amass enough points. It was because we were punished and got points deduction and were relegated. And then we came back up, and because all of our players had left, we didn't really have a good enough squad to compete. So we went back down straight away, and then we came back up straight away. So we had a bit of a yo-yo in the early sort of mid-'80s. And that was just a few years before Berlusconi came in and rescued what was a club that was heading for bankruptcy. So, yeah, I don't think it's quite as drastic as that, but it certainly doesn't feel great at the moment. Really, I mean, this could have been more than 2-1, in my opinion. You know, they had Smalling missed a free header, Mancini missed a free header, Donnarumma made a really good near-post save on Pastore. AJ, we just weren't at the races at all, were we?
Yeah, it's another frustrating game. Again, Pioli has our best performances this season have been under him. We started off in attack right away. That's something that it sounds like he wants us to do because we saw last week out as well. But we started immediately as soon as the kickoff, started attacking. Had a shot on target within the first couple minutes there. Kept pressing, and then after that, it just seemed like our production in the final third didn't exist. We'd get there, no problem, but then we'd send a crossover into the stands, or we'd send a shot out wide, or we'd just pass the ball and then eventually lose it, you know. You mentioned the first goal was from Edin Dzeko. It was off the corner, wide open header. Really, that's the one guy that you always want to have marked on a corner. I mean, he's proven throughout his entire career that headers are his bread and butter, so really no excuse for Kessie to not be there. I mean, if you go back and watch it, he's there and then kind of drifts off quite a bit and almost just assumes that the ball won't get there. Maybe it's because he's used to us putting in crosses that can't get all the way through. I don't know, but no reason for that. And he scored, and then I don't even remember who Zaniolo had the second goal, and that was a nice goal, but again, no reason it should have happened. I mean, we could have avoided it. It came from Calabria right after Theo Hernandez got the equalizer. Calabria made a terrible pass to a Roma player who then passed to Zaniolo and just shot it home. It was not within the final third, but you know, within the second third there, and yeah, just really no excuse for it.
Yeah, Matty, right back looks like it's becoming a problem for us very quickly. Obviously, Conte started the game, which many people weren't expecting after the disastrous performance that he put in. Not disastrous, but, subpar performance that he put in against Lecce. And then he got hiked off after 54 minutes or something against Roma.
Yeah.
52, yeah, against Roma. And then Calabria came on, made that impact with the assist, but then, just as quickly as he gets us a goal back, he's also at fault for one.
Quick props for Teo Hernandez, though. I mean, that's now his second goal in a few games, and he's only one off our top goal scorer, Piontek, who has 2 penalties and 1 open play goal, so he's right there.
He's been really good. I mean, we talked about the game against Lecce, how we saw a big shift in the way that we played. And one of those things in particular was about Hernandez pushing further up the pitch, which he has been doing. And he's been making a lot of runs where he cuts inside and almost ends up as like an attacking midfielder, which I've found interesting to see. But as part of that, you need a solid right back who's going to shift over and cover and help form a 3-man defence. And at the moment, we've had anything but that. I was going to throw something out there, which I quickly read before we started recording. It's from Calcio Mercato, so, you can take it with a pinch of salt, whatever you want to say. Apparently, Pioli's been so disappointed with the right back situation that he's actually considering playing one of Borini, Kessié, or Duarte at right back.
I would start Duarte out of any of those 3, and Borini over Kessié, because Kessié is slow as shit. And you know that Borini is going to give his all at whatever position he plays. But I think Duarte would probably be the best option there. I don't know why Calabria is playing so bad. He had such a good season last season. I don't know if it's just the change in management or, he had a really rough start to this season with 2 red cards, right? Or did he just get 1?
2 in his last 4 games.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with him, but maybe he just needs to get a couple more games underneath his belt to kind of smooth it out.
Yeah, I jumped to the defense of Kessié of Calabria on Twitter, because I think that, particularly under Gennaro Gattuso, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. I thought he was doing a pretty solid job for us week in, week out at right back. He's certainly a no-thrills player. He's not Cafu. He's not going to go bombing up and down the right side and creating ridiculous amounts of opportunities. But what he has got is a pretty good delivery, and he seemed to have good chemistry with Suso on that right side. But I think the constant changing coaches, changing systems as well, there are a lot of players that have suffered from that as a result and don't really know how they're meant to be playing anymore. And I think that Calabria is one of them, and I think Conte will look even worse than Calabria, because obviously he has this long-term injury that he's coming back from as well. So it's a difficult one, and it's a position that has fast become a problem. A lot of people were surprised when during the summer we were linked with another right back, and it's clear that the management had spotted a hole in the squad and said, look, Conte's not going to be good enough for us to be, he's not even good enough to be a backup. So we were linked with Aurier, and then we've been linked with other right backs during the first few weeks of the season here, and now it's looking like it's an absolute necessity to go and get a new fullback. I do. Go on, go for it, man.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, at the time, like you said, over the summer, we were linked with a new right back, and just about everyone assumed it was to replace Conte and to be a backup for Calabria. And now it just seems like we need to nix the whole side, and get a couple new right backs, a new starter and a new backup to be safe. Because if the idea is now to switch to either a 3 at the back or to use a midfielder or a winger as a right back, then we got a serious problem. And that's not even in theory. That's legitimate. Everyone knows we have a problem there. That's been where we've conceded just about every single goal this season. It's been from that right back side, that position there. We touched on it a little bit earlier last week, I think it was, about how in offense, we do switch to a 3 at the back so that Teo Hernandez can get forward, and then Calabria or Conte would stay in the back. So to me, it does make sense to throw Duarte in there at the right back spot, more so than Borini, although he would be better suited as a traditional right back. We've seen him play there, seen him succeed, and he's able to get forward. We know that. But I think Duarte would make a lot of sense, or Caldara if he's finally fit. I don't have an issue with that either. It's definitely something worth trying because it makes more sense in our system than it looks on paper. We talk about that all the time on paper, how we're a strong team, but that's really not what we're seeing. And I think, Ollie, that was you touching on that earlier in the group chat.
Yeah. I was saying I'm sick of so many people saying that we are, massively underperforming and that this young squad should be doing a lot better than they are. I do agree with that to an extent. Nobody expects us to be in 13th place, but I feel like you could absolutely see this coming from a mile off. All it took is for us to enter a rut, which we did fairly early on in the season. It cost Gianpaolo his job, and it's clear to see that the problem is that we have such a huge lack of leadership out there on the pitch that it's actually quite frightening. The players that you consider to be veteran players, the ones that have played a lot of games for this club, you can throw Belia into that category. He's just been anonymous, really, in the last 2 games. And Pioli was obviously going to put a lot of trust in him from the time that they worked together at Lazio. Then you're looking around the pitch for players who you think are going to sort of calm a game down and look around their teammates and get them to be a bit more composed and stuff like that. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. We are crying out for somebody like an Ibrahimovic when we had him the first time, and we had him in the obviously 10-11 and 11-12 seasons, and he almost dragged up the level of the squad. We won a Scudetto with Nocerino in midfield, and that was because he raised the level of everybody around him. And we are in this position now where we have got a squad that is underperforming, but we've also left ourselves with a situation because of the recruitment in the summer where it's going to be very hard to get them out of this mindset, and it's going to be very hard to psychologically, allow them to recover basically and get us turn us around. I mean, if you want to look at it cynically, what we've got now after the Spal game, which becomes an absolute must win, that is going to heap a load of pressure on the team as it is. But then after that, we've got Juve, Lazio, Napoli. It just doesn't get any easier. And all of a sudden you're thinking, do we take, okay, hopefully we win against Spal, but if we don't, it's an absolute nightmare. And then it's like, do we take 1 point out of the next 9 from those 3 games that come afterwards? It's like we could be in serious trouble. I'm just a bit worried about where the direction of this team is, because everybody expected Pioli to come in and be this stabiliser. We saw a good first 45 minutes against Lecce. We should have gone on and got the win. Coughing up the lead twice is inexcusable in my opinion. And then we saw a bang average performance against Roma that was littered with individual errors. We didn't seem to see a shape towards the end of the game, which is what we were hoping that he'd bring. And I don't know, everything just feels a bit negative at the moment, and it's hard to see where the turn comes from.
I mean, what's so negative to me is the second part of last season, we had one of the best defenses in Europe. Then start of this season, we're just crumbling and we can't defend anything. So I'm not sure if Gianpaolo did something or the team is just unconfident in their ability. But we clearly have the ability to have a good build-up play. It's just, being able to end it with a goal, and then being able to defend it on a counterattack or as the other teams are building up to score, because we clearly are lacking somewhere. And I don't think Pioli is going to come in and fix it in 2 games, unfortunately. But he has 3 really hard games coming up, so it'll be a good test for the team. And he is going to be here till the end of the season. There is no way that we're going to go through 2 managers in one season. So regardless of the outcome of the next 3 of the 4 games, he's here to stay. And I think that he is going to turn the team around. It's just not going to happen overnight that everyone expects.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is, like you said, he's going to have a really tough 3 out of 4 games here. And it's unfortunate that his first 5 games really only had 2 simple games, and we bottled it against Lecce twice, Like I said, I think I said 1 point out of these 5, didn't I? And so far, I'm on par with that, unfortunately. But but it's not going to start hot for Pioli, and it's really unfortunate for him personally because he didn't have the fan support behind him from the get go, and then you give him these tough games, and looking at the fixtures, it's easy to say you don't expect to get points from these, and cut him some slack, but then when you look at it as wow, he's gotten 1 point in his first 5 games. What is he doing here that's worse than Giampaolo? He's going to get heat again. And Madison, you're right. He's not going to get sacked. He's going to be here the whole season. But it's only going to be an uphill battle for him no matter what. And that's how it was going to be for any coach that came in at this time. It's just unfortunate that it was him because it was so negatively thought of him prior. But you mentioned us being the best defense in Europe last season. And we were. And then the change was Gattuso. You saw those players fight for him week in, week out, and that's the difference. That's something we're missing now is we go behind and then we just say, well, better luck next time. Let's try again next week instead of fighting for it. When we'd go behind under Gattuso, we would continue. We would wanted to at least get the draw. We'd want to win back the points. We'd want to fight for it, and we don't do that anymore. So it's a mentality issue, and I think it's a performance issue. When Giampaolo came in, he had this very unique system, something unknown to just about every single player on the squad. And it wasn't meshing, obviously. We saw that in the first 7 games. And then he was gone, and then we switched it again. And because both Conte and Calabria have been alternating and being suspended, neither of them have had enough time to adapt to anything, get enough games under the belt. So that not only is going to hurt their confidence, but their playing ability as well. And I think it's just the perfect storm of everything that's really making all of our players drop the ball here. And it's unfortunate. And pretty soon there's going to come a point when the players just don't care anymore. They're just going to be sick of it, kind of like the fans. So hopefully it doesn't get there, but we'll see. I
mean, you touched on an interesting point there about how there's almost that apathy creeping in at the moment where it's like, oh, well, that's another 3 points dropped or another point dropped, however you want to look at it. We get him again next week. Romagnoli said to, I think it was Mediaset after the game, I got the quotes up here. Basically said, these are errors that are due to a lack of attention. Both Roma goals came from our mistakes. We need to improve. It's true that we are young, but we need to improve. Mistakes are part of growth, but we need to improve. He said it 3 times. It's like I'm sorry, mate. I love Romagnoli to bits. I think he's another one that you could put into the category of being one of our most consistent performers since he arrived. Rightly the club captain, in my opinion. But I'm sick of hearing this same shit from all the players. Like, oh, we made mistakes that cost us, but we go again next week and stuff like that. It's time to actually put those words into action and stop making mistakes. There's only so much that a coach can, legislate for stuff like that happening. Calabria can't make a simple 10-yard pass, and that's the reason that we've not got a draw that perhaps you might look back on now and say would have been a good draw. I mean, yeah, there were other errors in the game, such as not being able to pick up wide open men from corners. I mean, that first goal made me so angry. How do you lose the, 6'5" target man who scores headers for fun? How do you lose him from a set piece? So Kessier's to blame for that. And I mean, we got a good question from Michael Shulansky. He says, everybody spent so much time talking about how Pioli's scheme was so vulnerable to the counter-attack, but we've been beaten by giveaways and poor defending for the most part. Basically says, how do you fix it? And honestly, this is the thing now. Like, we can no longer put a pinpoint on what it is that's wrong because everything's wrong. It's like whack-a-mole. Like, we start scoring goals, but we're leaking goals at the other end. We look like we can't score a goal, but it's just, I don't know. It feels like I've seen people, funnily enough, come out and say that Giampaolo should have been given a little bit more time because, frankly, the person that's come in is going to inherit such a bad situation that they can't possibly do any better. They can't undo what he was trying to do. But I don't necessarily agree with that, and I feel like once Pioli gets that first win under his belt, which hopefully comes against Spal on Thursday night, then that'll be a big deal. Don't get me wrong. The players need to know what it feels like to win again. Because the Genoa one didn't really feel right because they had the last-minute penalty. We felt like we kind of escaped from that. And, the other wins that we've had this season, both by a 1-goal margin in games that weren't exactly straightforward for us. So it doesn't feel like we've had a proper routine victory yet this season. And after 9 games, given the first 9 games that we've had in schedule terms, that should be pretty scary. And I don't know what the answer is to fix it, but my honest feeling at this point, and I haven't really calmed down after the game yesterday, is that you basically rip up that starting 11 that you thought was going to be the one that you could rely on. The one that had the likes of Musacchio in, Kessier in, Belia, the players that you thought were going to form the core of this Pioli team. I'd just bin it off. I'd basically just bin it off now. And I'd move to playing, obviously Donnarumma in goal. I'd put Duarte at right back, but acknowledge that he's going to be tucking in as part of a back three for the time that we're in possession. I'd play Caldara because he should hopefully be back, if not for the next game, the one after. And then Romagnoli there. Hernandez obviously keeps his place. Paqueta I would keep in because I really don't think that at the moment there's a much better alternative. However, you could argue that once Bonaventura's back to full fitness, you could play him there. I'd play Benacer over Belia and have him protecting that left side of the defence. Bring in Rebic for Suso. Bring in Leao. Play Leao on the left. Drop Çalhanoğlu. Play Piontek up front. I'd just change it up. I'd go for the team now that I think gives us the best chance of winning games, because ultimately we're in a position now when we need to go into every game thinking that we can win it. Otherwise, we're never going to make up that gap to 7th place, let alone 4th place. I feel like it's pretty desperate measures at the moment, but yeah, I don't know. How do we fix it, lads?
We restart. I mean, that silence is deafening, honestly, because I don't have a legitimate strategy for it. It seems like the past couple seasons, every week we come up with an idea on how to fix it. And honestly, I'm just bone dry of ideas at this point, but something's got to give.
Eventually, not playing Suso, not playing Biglia. I don't know what this team needs to do to stop playing Suso, but we keep on playing him. I just don't understand it. He is in horrible form. He's not fast. All he does is cut in and he takes a shot. He can't cross the ball. He's a one-trick pony.
Who would you play over him? I mean, we don't have a replacement.
Rebic plays on the right for Croatia.
What?
Ante Rebic plays on the right wing for Croatia.
Put him there.
He is used to playing there.
Yeah, just try something new. Put Castillejo there for against Spal. Let him try and earn a spot.
You could potentially move a creative player up and sort of flip. Because you know how Çalhanoğlu was down as a left winger against Lecce, but he ended up sort of tucking in and playing as an attacking midfielder. You could switch that to the right side and maybe put Paqueta there and acknowledge that he's going to drift in more, and then you can play Rebic on the left wing, and he actually is a left winger. Who knows? There are different things that you can do to sort of alter the balance of the team. This is what obviously a coach should be working on. I mean, of course, I'm not going to absolutely write Pioli off yet or anything like that, and acknowledge that he will be learning more about this squad as the days go on. And in a way, I think it's good that we've got a game on Thursday night, so we're not dwelling on the poor result against Roma. We're not dwelling on the mistakes that we made and all that kind of stuff. Instead, we've got a chance to put it right against a team that we should be beating at home. But again, it's huge pressure. We need to put a lineup out there that's going to win the game for us, and also have an eye on the fact that we've got a very, very tough game straight up after that this weekend. So, I don't know. It feels like, as AJ sort of alluded to, it's a mini storm of loads of different issues that are now going against us, and this is why the team finds itself 3 points away from the relegation zone. I thought there was some interesting comments. I don't know if you guys have read them. There was the shareholders meeting today where they discussed the 2018-19 budget, which obviously was a bit of a shitstorm at the time that it came out, because our losses actually went up from the era under Yong Hong Lee, and obviously he spent a lot of money. But yeah, Gazidis came out and he does have a tendency to do this when things aren't going particularly well. He comes out and, in my opinion, says what all the fans want to hear. Said that, I'm convinced we can reach our goals if we work together. We will restore the pride of Milan. Basically came out and said that they'll go out and get leaders in January. In terms of players, go out and get leaders in January, just like they did with Higuain last year, which I thought was a weird thing to say. But yeah, and he said Maldini and Boban are doing a great job. Everyone's impatient, but it takes time. I don't know if that really helps things, to be honest, because it's like we keep hearing from inside the club, people coming out and saying, "Oh, we're working to achieve our goal, but everyone needs to be patient and stuff like that." I'd rather they just kept their mouths shut and got on with it at this point, because comments like that about going out and signing players like Higuain in January, all it's going to do is inflame the fan base, surely.
Yeah, and it hurts the players that we currently have.
Yeah.
It says what we have isn't enough, so they have no incentive to push forward because now they know, well, we're on the chopping block. I'm getting replaced in 5 months. It doesn't say we have what we need to get to the next level. We just need to focus and work harder and encourage the players we have. If that's the plan in January, fantastic. I support it, but don't say it now in a way that's negative to the players that are already at rock bottom. It's not going to help the system whatsoever. And I don't know. My issue with it as well is they're talking attackers. We always go for attackers, and it's like we have a plethora of strikers in our one striker formation. We don't need to keep doing that. Now they're talking about bringing back Ibrahimovic, which obviously would instantly become our best striker, but he's 38 years old. Yes, we need leaders. We need his mentality and experience, but why don't we get him in positions that we're struggling in? Why don't we get an experienced right back? Why don't we go for a guy like Thiago Silva who's going to be free pretty soon? Why don't we go for someone in the midfield? Things like that would actually improve us. We don't need another striker, but that's what they want. They want another old, experienced striker.
Yeah, they do, yeah. Because they're thinking about it from a commercial point of view as well. I mean, to go out and get an experienced striker, I mean, I'm instantly thinking of names of players that you might consider to be out of favour at the moment, or players that could potentially be available in January. You're looking at the likes of Mandzukic, obviously Ibrahimovic has been mentioned, potentially Diego Costa, he was mentioned, who I'd love for us to go and get because he is a proper bastard. And we need someone like that. We need someone nasty in our team. Even Giroud and stuff like that have been linked to us. They're not really names that fill me with an awful lot of optimism. We at the start of the summer we said it's a bit of a weird recruitment strategy going out and getting all these young players when it's clear that what we needed from last season was just a bit of experience to get us over the line. But we'll back the management, we'll back the ownership until they give us a reason not to. They've now basically given us a reason not to, because they've come out and said we got it wrong. We should have signed experience in the summer. And now it's like we're going to have to go out in January, overpay, because you always overpay in January. And then we're going to end up with a team that is scrapping to somehow get into the Europa League places, because at the moment we can't be looking at the top four.
Yeah, but I don't think that's Boban and Maldini. I think that's Gazidis and Elliott wanted the young squad.
Yeah.
Because, and it doesn't make sense. You need experienced players to lead you on the team. And January, hopefully we can stay competitive until then. Recently, it looks like we're not going to, but crazier things have happened. Leicester City won 9-0 on Friday.
Yeah, that was mad. I found it interesting. I mean, it got quite a lot of flack, and for obvious reasons was probably tweeted at the wrong time, but tweet something now after the game about how in October 27th, 2012, we had 10 points after 9 games. So obviously that was the 12-13 season. October 27th, 2019, we have 10 points after 9 games. We finished third in the 2012-13 season. So it isn't necessarily from a statistical point of view a write-off at the moment. But I suppose the difference is you look at that squad and it had players that had been used to success. There was still a lot of players left from a team that had won the Scudetto 2 years previous. So it doesn't feel like it's as tangible this time around. But I suppose it is a testament to the fact that it can possibly be done.
Yeah, but you also have to look at the competition that season. It was Juventus, and the rest was a toss-up. Whereas now we know for a fact Juventus and Inter are going to be up there till the end. Seems like Atalanta's going to be up there till the end. Seems like Napoli's going to be up there till the end. So, I mean, it's even though mathematically, yes, it's still possible by quite a bit, things don't look good. And I'm curious to see where we are come January, because the end of this 5-game spell is going to take us to the end of November. That'll be we'll have 4 games after that before the January break. So
yeah,
maybe 3.
you
There's another international break, I think, around then as well, so it might only
Yeah,
be 3.
it's in between Lazio and Napoli.
it's November
All right.
15th. It's it seems like it's going to be impossible to do, but when you look at the table, Roma on 16, Lazio on 15, Napoli on 17, we're on 10. And teams have been, I feel like, been very inconsistent at the top of the table. Lazio, Roma, they've been drawing games. Last season, I feel like it was so top heavy that if this happened last season, we could have kissed it goodbye. But I feel like this season, it's a little bit more realistic to make a unbelievable run like that.
I disagree. I think this
well,
season's more top heavy. I mean, yes, it's only 2-3 game difference between us and the teams you mentioned, but the reality is we played Inter, who's above us, and we dropped. So that's a 6-point game we lost. Roma, 6-point game we lost. Juve is going to be a 6-point game we're about to lose. Napoli potentially is one of them, and Lazio is potentially one of them. Those are all teams that are above us fighting for the spots we need, and we're losing to them. So that's yes, it's hurting us, but it's giving them a spot too.
I also, I've mentioned before that the hope for us getting into the top 4 this season, and this was obviously before the season started really, was that Atalanta don't do what they did last season. Because Juve, Inter and Napoli have 3 of the 4 spots locked up. So we're then fighting with Roma, Lazio, and I expected Atalanta to drop off. And what do you know? They're 3 points off top spot. So fair play to them. Can only tip your hat to them and say Gasperini is doing an absolutely fantastic job with them. They're not that competitive in the Champions League. I thought they'd prioritise running the Champions League, to be honest, but looks like they're probably going to crash out of that. But they're doing the business in the league. They're scoring 7 goals when we don't seem to be able to score more than 1, or not very often anyway. So I don't know. Just feels like from the we're on the outside looking in, and I really don't know how we get on the inside. We need to put together an amazing run from somewhere, and I don't know where it's coming from. That's the bottom line, I guess. And Pioli's got a hell of a job on his hands. I think that the January window can't really come soon enough at this point, but I also think that we can be naive enough to assume that 2 players who are over 30 years old are going to fix all of our problems. So, yeah, I mean, we got a few questions this week from people saying, how can we turn the season around? And I wish we knew the answer to that. But go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to, because you mentioned 2 people over 30 is not going to turn around for us, which I fully agree with. But it's just another, going back to, like you said, trust management until they give us a reason not to, and now they kind of have. It's another example of the fans being right over the management, which is rare in football. Most of the time, the easiest comeback to any fan complaint is the management and the team knows a lot more about it than you do, which is always true. But time and time again with Elliott so far, all the complaints we've seen from the fans have turned out to be right. We said don't bring in Giampaolo. We were on board for Allegri last summer. We got Giampaolo. Everyone complained. Well, true and behold, he loses his job after 7 games. Then Pioli out. Number 4 hashtag worldwide. Who do we sign? Pioli. And so far, no wins in 2 games. And we've always been saying, get these experienced players. And now the management is saying, oh, our idea of young players was wrong. We need experience. We're going to do it later. So it's like, at what point what are we supposed to do? Because we don't have a say in this, but yet our ideas are clearly the ones that are the second thought that seems to be working more. I don't know.
Why don't you write them a letter?
Frustrating, right? Write your congressman. It's just a frustrating situation of being for the fans, and it really puts in a position of like the apathy. You don't care anymore. I'm over it, honestly.
I had an interesting discussion with a mate of mine who was a season ticket holder last year. He goes in the Curva Sud, really good guy. He stopped watching games this year about a month ago, he said. He said he's piled about €10,000 into this club, following them all over Europe for the last 10 years, and he feels like for the first time it actually isn't worth it because they're not getting repaid. There's nothing worth paying and going to watch about this team anymore.
That's
and
huge.
I think that there's a lot of people, particularly in the Curva, who have been critical of Maldini before and have been critical with the policy of bringing back club legends into positions of power, be it head coach, director, whatever. They feel like this is very much a case of we told you so. Like, just because Maldini is a club legend, he played over however many games for the club, doesn't mean he's a good director. And it doesn't. He's not held this position at a football club before. So he put his balls on the line and went and said, I want Gianpaolo as the head coach. He also put his balls on the line and said, I want us to go and get Teo Hernandez. He's probably got that one right. But he's a better eye for a left back than what he is a head coach. So have we made a bunch of catastrophic appointments that actually go above the head coach level? Boban left his job at FIFA. He does have some experience, but should we be telling him to stick to the legal side of things? Should he be the one who is purely dealing with UEFA through the financial fair play negotiations and stuff like that? And then that means Gazidis can focus more on sponsorships and bringing in revenue, which has declined since he came in, by the way.
And
meant
that's
to be
another
this
thing that
big scalp that we got.
About was the
I think
financial fair play. That we're getting worse in our league standing, which means that's going to get worse, which means we're not going to be able to sign more people, which means it's a continual downhill spiral.
Yeah,
Gazidis came out during the shareholder meeting today and said he got a grilling, basically. It's worth reading. This was Scaroni who came out and said this. He got a grilling by a group called APA, which some of you may know, some of you won't. It's basically the Milan Association of Small Shareholders, and it's the head of it is a guy called Filippo La Scala, who's done that 120 years of Milan book and stuff like that. He's a sound guy. Came out and he asked 7 questions. He got a grilling, basically, did Scaroni, all about sponsorship. Is there any kind of strategy behind strengthening the squad? Is this a multi-year program? Are there defined budgets and objectives? Do we need to generate capital gains through sales? And then ask some more specific stuff about Emirates selling the naming rights to Milanello, stuff like that. All stuff that are fairly reasonable questions. And the only thing that Scaroni said, apparently, this is according to Milan News, on the sponsorship thing was, sponsorship deals are the daughters of sports results. We have a series of negotiations in progress. So what he's basically saying there is the results are shit, so that's why we're not making as much money through sponsors, which is fair enough. It's black and white. It's probably the honesty that we needed. But it feels like for a long time, the wool has been pulled over our eyes, and it's no, we're going to, getting Puma's a much better deal. Sorry, getting Puma is a much better deal for the club. Adidas weren't offering us as much and stuff like that. It's you can't really fool us. Adidas didn't want us anymore. We're not gonna be with Fly Emirates anymore after this season either. I'm convinced they'll bin us off because they're paying us too much money for the exposure that they get, which is basically just league games at the moment. It just feels like everything's kind of falling in on itself.
Can you also just acknowledge that we hire second-rate managers? Because when you want good results, when you want to climb the table, you need to be hiring managers who can strive for that, not managers who are finishing underneath you in the table. I understand that, you want to find a diamond in the rough for those up-and-coming managers, but when it's really important to your financial decision to finish higher up in the table, you should not be taking a risk on a manager who finished 10th this season before that, or Pioli, who almost got relegated the last time that he was a manager. You need to be striving for more. And when you hire managers who finish 10th, their scope of players are players who finish 10th. They are not looking for players who are capable of finishing first, second, third, fourth. They think that they are, but face it, some managers are just better and better equipped than others. Gianpaolo will never be a top tier manager. Pioli will never be a top tier manager, and so they may see the Messis in the world, but then you get a Krunic, or you get a Biglia or something like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention Krunic because I guess really it's easy to go around in circles on this and say that you look at the investment that we made for Krunic, which was 8 million euros as a transfer fee paid to Empoli, and 8 to 10 million euros would have paid Max Allegri's salary for a year. It's like, you've got to think about prioritizing the investments. You're looking at a 25 million euro player, okay, somebody who we perhaps didn't need to go out and get. Instead, that pays a top class manager's salary for 3 years. And it's like, there can't be the same excuses anymore. I understand that we're working under certain parameters and the budget is affected by that as a result, but there comes a time when you have to prioritize certain investments over others as a result of that, and it feels like we have focused too much on sort of these transfer campaigns over the last 2 or 3 summers where we've brought in 6, 7 players, spent good money on them, and they haven't worked out for whatever reason, whereas in the back of everything we've been turning over some pretty average coaches. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we've all pretty much been in agreement that Gianpaolo, perhaps given the names that were out there and available this summer, was certainly one that you'd put towards the bottom of the pile. And then the whole Pioli over Spalletti thing, we'll see how it works out. Like I said, not writing Pioli off at the moment, but not a great start. And you're thinking, well, was this the right time to go out and make a statement, get a manager who is going to walk into a dressing room and command immediate respect rather than someone who is going to try to be everybody's best mate? I've seen a few people on Twitter saying that, well, the players seem to be seem to be smiling in training sessions and stuff like that. Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, should they be enjoying themselves in training? Should we have gone with a manager who is a pure disciplinarian, not like Gianpaolo, who didn't even speak to anybody and looked miserable all the time, but somebody who is perhaps a little bit of a firmer hand, like a Wenger, like a Mourinho, even like a Spalletti, who a lot of his players hated. And I don't know. It's all ifs and buts, I guess. But what it feels like is that in the running of a football club, just like in life, just like in anything, that you're at a certain point and there are a number of different paths that you can go down in various aspects. And it feels like we've chosen all the wrong ones at this point.
It's because they don't care. The management doesn't care. I mean, you look at the Spalletti issue, and that's a prime example. They spent a day negotiating with him. There was a €500,000 roadblock, and they moved to the next best thing because it was the cheapest option possible.
As far as we
Their
know.
whole strategy has been the find the diamond in the rough thing. They're going to keep taking risks until one works, and then they're going to say, "I told you so." But how many times can you get away with that? Well, we know the answer, and no one's accepting anymore. They've used all their chances, but they're still going to take more because they're in charge, and ultimately they get as many as they want. I don't think the experienced players that we're going to be getting are these big name people. I wouldn't expect an Ibrahimovic. I wouldn't expect a Thiago Silva. I would expect an old person like Mandzukic, who's old and experienced and decent, like a Giroud. Those are the level of players we're going to be seeing. They also mentioned in that same meeting that our wage bill was too high and that we need to get that under control. So does that mean we're going to ask the current players who are struggling, hate playing here, to take a wage cut, or are we going to be selling off our best players as is? I mean, I don't. They could say anything they want, but the telling stuff to me is the negative, and I don't have much hope going forward. We'll see what happens, but I don't have the confidence in the management until. I mean, Elliot's always been here to sell us. We know that. So until the new owner comes in, whoever it may be, I'll never expect more than middle ground from Elliot.
So Calcium, you mentioned there about Giroud and Mandzukic. I wrote this up like 2 hours before we started recording. Calciomercato.it, whatever you want to say about them as a credible source or not. They basically named 5 players that we'll be looking at in January to add experience. And Giroud and Mandzukic were on the list. So I think you're right in terms of that's the kind of caliber of player that we're going for. They also said Adam Lallana was on there, which I can't fathom that move in my head at all. But he's out of contract at the end of the season. I believe so is Giroud and so is Mandzukic. Shkodran Mustafi was one of them.
He's played
Arsenal.
less than He hasn't played anything this
I
season.
don't think he's
He's
played
a
a single
laughing
minute
stock
in
in
the.
the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him when he was at Valencia. I think he's kind of been hung out to dry a little bit by Arsenal, but also at the same time, he's made a lot of mistakes. And Arsenal fans will tell you, that we can take him off their hands for nothing.
Yeah.
And then the other name was Pedro, who, again, he's just not part of Frank Lampard's plans because that's Chelsea. You look at Chelsea, they're
Pedro's the
showing how
one
to do
option
it.
that would be fitting for us because then it gives us that replacement for Suso if need be. He's
So you
got the
want to sign
experience.
another one-trick pony Spaniard to replace the one that we've already got?
It just gives us another option. I don't want to, but out of the names on the list, that's the only one that at least makes a little bit of sense to me.
I like Mandzukic. I would like
Mandzukic is probably the
Mandzukic.
best one, but to do what? To be a third string striker? I mean,
For me,
unless
it's that
he's,
because
you think he'd start over the others?
Piontek's obviously bang out of form as we know, and he actually seems to look like he wants it more when he comes off the bench. Although, Roma game aside, he didn't really get into that. But against Empoli and against Lecce, the games that we started on the bench prior to that, he came on and he caused a lot of problems and he made a big difference. So that seems to be like a rocket up his arse. And if you want to start Mandzukic up front, obviously he's like 33, so he's not going to be able to start every single game, especially when we've got 3 in a week or whatever. But he's good to have on there. And then if Piontek starts coming on and starts bagging goals, then you can perhaps think about swapping them over. But also it allows Leao to potentially play as a left forward, as a left winger, whatever you want to say, which I am starting to think is a more natural position for him. From the 2 games that we've seen with him starting as a centre forward under Pioli so far, he drifts too wide. He got 2-3 chances against Lecce, making good runs in between the fullback and the centre back usually on their right hand side. But he was too wide to really finish. He ended up hitting the side netting a couple of times. One of them he tried to pull across goal. I don't think he's an out and out striker. I don't think he's that penalty box striker that Pioli is looking for. I wouldn't be surprised to see him switch him to being out on the left hand side. But I guess we'll see. And Mandzukic, he does fit into that category of being experienced, of playing Champions League minutes recently. He's done it over the last few years for Juve. He's done it at Bayern Munich before. And he also has that nasty streak about him that I feel like we're missing at the moment. We're too nice as a team. We don't get stuck in enough. Yeah, you could say we get a lot of red cards, but they're not for nastiness, let's say. A lot of them are second yellow cards, and Calabria's couple have been stupid, and we've actually had 2 of them from bench players as well, which is a bit strange. But I don't know. I just feel like we are missing someone who's going to be a bit nasty, and people might laugh at that and say, well, nastiness isn't really a thing. But we do need someone who's going to at least show that they give a shit and show a bit of passion, whether they overdo it a bit at times. Just somebody who's willing to dig in, Gattuso would have loved to play a man like Mandzukic. I think Gattuso, the part of the reason that he walked, it's come out, is because he asked for the management to go out and sign a couple of experienced players in the summer, and one of them was Ibrahimovic, and Gazidis vetoed the deal. So, I don't know what the hell's happening. It feels
I
like
want to know what our salary cap is for a player. I mean, if they're saying our salary is too high now, is it for who they are? Is it just a number?
I saw did a recent report on that, and it was apparently it's 4 million. They don't want anyone to be paid over 4 million euros a year. Obviously, Donnarumma is on 6 million a year at the moment, and
Trying to get 7.
Yeah, and the report then said that our first offer to Raiola was the total length of his contract as it is at the moment gets spread out over 2 more years, so it therefore averages out at 4 mil a year. It's like, that is so insulting. I mean, we could go off on another tangent here, but personally, I think that we're heading on a path where Donnarumma's not starting for us next season. He's going. We cannot keep
I don't blame
insulting him with. It's insulting to ask him to take a pay cut when he's the only one this season who can honestly say that he's been playing at a respectable level. And he's actually saved us a lot of goals this season.
You look at the players mentioned coming in, like Ibrahimovic, he's making $7 million in the MLS. Why would he go to a harder league to where he has to actually try to get results and make less money before retiring? That doesn't make any sense. He's not going to do that.
And he's not a sentimental kind of person, I don't think, Ibrahimovic either. He actually said something, didn't he? He said, like, oh, they're a mess at the moment at Milan.
Yeah.
So, I unless he thinks, right, this is going to be my last thing, I'm going to go back to a club that I love and try and sort the mess out. But I think he's looking at it thinking, oh, take a pay cut, go back there. There's a high risk of things going wrong and them booing me off the pitch because, that's the kind of shit that our fans do now. I'd say no. If I was in Ibra's position, I'd say no. Honestly, if I was in Mandzukic's position and I was picking up 7 mil a year, which I think he earns roughly that, I'd rather sit on the bench at Juve than go and
and get more trophies to his resume. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's just shit. We're not an attractive prospect anymore, I don't think. I think we definitely discussed this over the summer when we were talking about our recruitment and our inability to compete for these star players. Everything seemed lined up for us to go and get Torreira, and that didn't happen. And all the other players that we were linked with, Ceballos, and a few wingers that we didn't end up getting. And it's like, I think we really aren't that attractive a prospect anymore. And if it comes to January the 1st and we're sat in 10th place, we're definitely a lot less attractive a prospect than we were in the summer. I think people just look at us as a bit of a circus at the moment, and rightly so.
And the wages are another thing with that. We look at the players that you just mentioned, Ceballos and Torreira. What were the issues with them? Ceballos, it was wages, and Torreira was the overall cost. So we're being too fickle. We want our cake and we want our cake and we want to eat it too, and you just can't do that. That's not how it works. So,
but imagine if we spent all that money and we were still in this position.
But I genuinely
don't think we
would be.
No, I don't.
You don't?
No. When you look
at
I'm
not saying those players were the key, but absolutely to have Torreira or Ceballos instead of Biglia or Benacer starting, yes, 100% that would make a difference.
I mean, Sensi was one that it feels like even Vera too. People laughed at the idea of signing Vera too, and they said that it was dragging on too much and stuff like that. In the end, Roma got him on a year loan with option or obligation to buy him for 17 million euros or something like that, which the way that he played against us, it looks like a steal. And apparently he's been good this season. Sensi's another one. We said that 25 million euros was too high, and now I've seen something today that Barcelona want him. He started the season that well.
Another one was Mancini that Roma had, who played great against us. We have a defensive problem. Demiral. It's like the list goes on and on and on. And it was all the people whose cost was just slightly over that 35 million mark, which we set as the limit without actually saying it. It seems like anything above that we just vetoed, which you're not going to get results instantly like we're demanding without these level of players.
We should have. I'm just thinking now. We Inter probably got it literally bang on. Obviously, they had a slightly bigger budget than us because they qualified for the Champions League and stuff like that. But they acknowledged that they had a good team. Bearing in mind, we finished 1 point behind them last season. They acknowledged that they had a good team. We should have acknowledged that we have a good team, a good spine that probably needed 2 or 3 quality additions totaling, say, 90 million euros, which is what we ended up spending on 6 players this summer.
How many of those started the last game? 2 of them. Leao and Teo. And you could argue Leao's not even a concrete starter. Ridiculous.
No, it honestly is bizarre. Rebic must be thinking, what the F have I done coming here? That Frankfurt director looks pretty spot on at the moment, sadly, when he said that he's took a gamble and lost. And then into their big investment was going out and getting the right coach. And we're looking now at Conte, fair enough. I think he only was going to go to a team that was in the Champions League, but Roma were pretty serious on him as well. I think if we'd have been in the mix and we'd have just said, look, we'll better whatever Inter are offering you, he might have taken it. He might have fancied the project. And also, obviously, with him being ex-Juve, he might not wanted to go to Inter given the reception and stuff like that, but whatever. But we're still looking at a situation now where Max Allegri and Spalletti are both unemployed. And we've gone for Pioli. And, our start to the season, we had Udinese, Brescia, Verona, then we had the derby, but we had Torino, Fiorentina at home, Genoa away, Lecce at home. Frankly, the points return from those games, 8 of which, in my opinion, are winnable, is embarrassing. And now we've got this stretch of 5 games that are just absolute murderer's row in terms of, fixtures, and we could find ourselves even further in a mess. So I think, what it's looking like now is a catastrophic string of bad decisions that we were all skeptical about in the summer, but weren't flat out like, this is outrageous, they're running us into the ground. They must be panicking on the inside, man. I really don't buy this cool, calm, collected front that Gazidis and that Maldini and Boban are putting up. I think they're panicking on the inside, and they know that some serious investment is needed in January to get things even stable again, even to get us into the top 8. Because when you've got Cagliari 5 points above us, Parma 3 points above us, it's dreadful. It feels embarrassing. That's just exactly how it feels.
Well, remember when Pioli got appointed during that press conference? He said the goal was now a European spot, not a Champions League spot, a European spot. So they already downgraded the.
4. He said that he thinks we could fight for top 4.
But I thought he said the overall goal was a European spot.
I think it was to get back into the European spots and then see where we go from there. So yeah, possibly you could say that's an admission of like downgrading the objectives. But at this point, Christ, I'd take a top 6 finish. I'd take a top half finish.
I mean, I would too, honestly.
How many times have I said in recent weeks, my worry is not about us finishing outside the top 6. It's about us finishing outside the top 4. It's about us finishing somewhere between like 8th and 12th. And at the moment, that looks like a really realistic possibility. I know it's early days.
A huge step backwards.
I know it's early days, but when Elliot is so like oriented on results on the field, you know, and the squad improving overall, so we can record gains on the balance sheet and stuff like that. Again, they must be shitting it. The strategy is unfolding before them, and I don't know. Like I say, it just feels very, very negative at the moment. And who knows, we could go out and beat Spal 5-0, and knowing the reactive nature of this fan base, everything's all right again. We might even fluke a couple of wins in these next 3 or 4 games. We don't know. But yeah, don't feel great at the moment. We have actually got a couple of games to preview dead quickly because, you know, I'm not that asked about talking about games that we're going to lose. But we've got Spal on Thursday night. I don't really know too much about how Spal have started the season. I mean, I know they drew with Napoli on Sunday. And I know they've got Petagna, who's pretty much guaranteed to score against us. I don't think they're doing too well in the table.
No, they're not. But weirdly, they beat Lazio early in the season.
Yeah, they're second bottom. And I mean, when Lecce came to play us, I think they were second bottom as well. So I don't know. They're going to come and set up for a point, I think. So it's going to be another test of how we can break a team down, which might do us some good in a way. But without wanting to
we've never lost to them. We've never drawn. We've won every matchup we've had against them. Granted, that's only 4 in recent history. So I don't know, but we'll see.
I mean, I think personally, broken clock's right twice a day, so I'm going to back us to win this one. It might be 2-1 or something like that, but I'm going to back us to win it.
Yeah, I would too. Honestly, I mean, I said it same thing with Lecce, but it's Spal. You know, there's no reason that we shouldn't win. So I think we will, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Don't be shocked if we don't, but expect to win.
Maddie, prediction?
Hopefully a clean sheet with 2 or more goals scored for us. Likelihood of that happening, slim to none. Ideally, we're going to win 2-1 or have a 1-1 draw.
And I think this is one of those where I wouldn't be massively shocked if we drop points, but I will be absolutely outraged if we don't win this game. With everything that's happened, with the drop points against Lecce and stuff like that, as I said before, this is a must win game. And if we don't, then might as well blow it up, and we'll just come back next season. And then we got Lazio on Sunday. Obviously, this is a much tougher test. Actually, the last game I went to was Milan-Lazio in the Coppa semi-final second leg last season. Saw firsthand how they seem to have figured out how to play at San Siro, and how they've sort of figured out under Inzaghi how to play in general. I mean, I watched them against Fiorentina. Really good 3 points for them was that. And I don't know. I feel like this is another team that we're probably going to run into at the wrong time. I'm not hopeful that we win this, even though our home record against Lazio has been pretty good over the last few years and probably throughout history, to be honest. But I'm not. They've won 2 of their last 5, but they've only lost 1. They've scored double the amount of goals that we have. They've conceded comfortably less than we have. I'm pessimistic about this. I think that it could be another Fiorentina where a team that's better than us comes and does a job on us.
Speaking of Fiorentina, you see Ribery got a 3-game ban for shoving an official?
Yeah, I mean, he deserved it.
I heard about that.
He
That's wild.
apologised. He apologised, which I think was fair enough. But you can't be going around shoving officials.
No.
I mean, I think it's enough now that you get a red card when you're on the bench and you shout something towards the referee. Castillejo and Pepe Reina have both been sent off for that exact thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's not ideal. And he'd had a really good start to the season as well. But I think the 3 games that I was reading, the 3 games that he misses for Fiorentina. Hang on, let me just look at the next 3 games. Are Sassuolo away, Parma at home, and Cagliari away. Parma and Cagliari have started the season well, but they'll be going into those games thinking that they can win without him. They'll put more of a load on Chiesa, but yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, Lazio predictions, boys, in whatever order.
No good.
No.
I've been saying like a lot of wins these past couple of games, and we have not gotten any wins. So I'm going to say we are going to lose 1-0.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I can tell that the build up to the game is going to be like, oh, Pioli against his former club and stuff like that. He hasn't managed them for like 5 years or whatever, but yeah, I think we lose. I think they've just got a bit too much. They've got match winners all over the pitch, whereas we've got a bunch of players that might as well be wearing a cloak of invisibility at the moment. So I'm going to say we lose like 3. Well, we lose 2-0. I think we lose 2-0. Hope to be wrong on that, but you know the pessimistic predictions mean that we can't be disappointed, right? So yeah, just a couple of quick questions didn't get around to yet. Christian Espinoza asks, I mean, we did talk about this a little bit, about the idea tactically of taking out Suso and putting Leao on the right wing with Piontek in the middle. Do you think Leao can play as a right winger?
I want to keep him as striker. I think he's great there. So no.
Do you see his Instagram story earlier, by the way?
Yeah, I did. And I was kind of surprised, kind of not. He pretty much said that he needs to earn the trust of the team again. At least I think he was talking about the team.
Mm.
And he's completely right, because watching the game, they're like hesitant to pass him the ball. Like he makes runs, and Suso, instead of tapping the ball through, he runs it in, shoots and misses. And I don't understand what's going on there, but it seems like there's a little bit of unrest there in the front 3, and that could be why we are not finishing our chances.
Leao frustrates me. I'm a big fan of him, but the last couple of weeks he's been really annoying to watch. He thinks too much on the ball and goes for a lot of fancy shit he doesn't need to be doing. He just needs to play, and he can. But every single game, we've seen him do step overs. We've seen him do fancy flicks. We've seen him do spin moves. We saw him this last time on a breakaway receive the ball from Paqueta and then do 3 or 4 step overs when there was no one near him. And all that did was slow down play, allow Roma defenders to get back in the spot. And then he passed it back, and then we passed it back 2 more times back to Donnarumma and completely killed our build-up. And there's just no room for that type of shit. Obviously, he's young, but it's immaturity, and I'd rather him not be the main striker at this point. I think he could play on the wing if Piontek's in the middle or someone else. I don't know, but I don't want him to be the main attacking source at this point because he's being too creative and playing like he's got other responsibilities instead of just scoring.
That's because the rest of the team is slacking.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he feels like he has to do it all on his own at the moment. And he just needs to focus on putting away the chances that he gets. I mean, that Fiorentina, all the hype behind Leao came from that game against Fiorentina.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there was a couple of bright cameos that he had before, but it basically all came from that goal, that he scored where he parted the two defenders, and it was a great finish, don't get me wrong. But we were 3-0 down, and it's like all of a sudden this kid is our saviour. And I said on the podcast that we did after the Fiorentina game that I hope people don't put too much pressure on his shoulders, because that's the last thing that he needs. And all of a sudden it's like he's the second coming of George Weah. Like, people are talking about him like he's incredible. He's very raw. He's a raw talent. That's exactly what he is. Ideally, he needs to be surrounded by players who give us guaranteed production, so he doesn't feel as much pressure, so he can sort of go out and play his natural game. But instead, new manager comes in and says, "You're our starting striker now. You're the guy who's going to be responsible for winning those games." He's a 20-year-old kid. Like, it just feels like another situation where we could be handling a player very badly on an individual level. But we'll see.
It's almost like the discovery of Donnarumma has been a curse for us, because every position we've needed help in since then, we've found a young kid and been like, okay, it's on you. Let's see what you got. And just hoping like, well, worked with Donnarumma, and it just doesn't work because that's a 1 in a million find.
That's funny. I've never thought about that.
I think it's a really good point. I mean, you look at the players that have sort of come through after that and have been entrusted in the same sort of way. Obviously, Calabria was the one who made the big breakthrough, and then it was Cutrone. And it just makes me think now, well, do we just go shit or bust at this point and just throw Brescianini in there instead of Kessie in the midfield? He's been really, really good for the Primavera this season. He's obviously their captain. He's a big leader for them. Or go and give Colombo some minutes. He's banging him in for the Primavera as well. I don't know. You just think, if we're going to do this whole youthful thing, then why don't we just focus on our own? I don't know, though. We've been relegated from the Primavera First Division, haven't we? So I guess you can't put too much importance on that. Right, what's the last question? Oh, yeah. Last question comes from Joseph Calvo. Which free agent signing in the summer, so next June, would you most like Milan to make? I will start then.
Contract to end on 2020 or 2021? Because it's coming up. Yeah.
Finale?
Yeah.
It must be 2021. It is definitely. Yeah, in fact, it definitely is.
Okay.
It might be even after that. I'm not sure. Because what's his name? President Chilino came out and said that he wanted something like 300 million for him, and he's not even going to think about selling him until next summer and stuff like that. And obviously, if he was out of contract, yeah. But I would like us to go and sign Tonali if we're going to stick by this youth thing. But at the moment, it seems like a pretty bad idea. I've already said who I think we should be looking at going and getting for the Regista position. If we do want some experience, Javi Martinez would be absolutely fantastic for that. Obviously, he's not getting much of a game at Bayern anymore, but he has that top-level experience and that leadership that would be very valuable for us.
What about Thomas Mueller?
Ollie doesn't like it, but yeah, I'm down with Mueller, Martinez. Hell, even see if Robin wants to come out of retirement and just help us out for a little bit. I mean, he's the exact same as Suso, but at least he's better.
No, I mean, I would take Martinez for sure, but Mueller's proven to be a great player. He's unhappy at Bayern Munich. Give him $4 million a season. Tell him to come play a couple years, and you can retire.
Seen an interesting stat regarding Thomas Mueller. Someone tweeted out that I follow, or I don't know what it was, but whatever. Oh, yeah, he was tagged in something because he was linked with Inter. His XG, whether you read much into that, I don't know, but it's obviously an algorithm to do with expected goals per game. And in 15-16, Thomas Mueller was averaging around about 0.55 expected goals per game. He's currently at 0.2, and it's declined by like half each year. And he's just dropped off massively. He played before in a system that was massively beneficial for him, where he was what they call the original Ramdeuter, or however you pronounce it, where his role was literally just to find pockets of space and shoot on sight, and it worked really well. But now it just feels like he's just not been good for a while. It's a big risk to go and get someone like him.
You play for Bayern Munich, you win every competition, you win the World Cup. It's got to be so hard to stay motivated after that.
I mean, You're right. It's like when you're on top of the world, do you try and reach for the moon? I don't know. It's more introspective, that I guess. But in my opinion, especially when you consider the management that they've had there, obviously he was playing under Guardiola, who got the best out of him, frankly. Then he played under Ancelotti, and then you can say there was a bit of a drop off because they brought in Kovac, who hasn't really won everybody over. But yeah, he's a professional footballer, and he's a, as far as I know, he's a Bayern Munich supporter, and you just think he's always going to want to give his best for the club, surely. And he probably feels a bit backstabbed by the fact that they went out and got James Rodriguez last season to play a similar role, and then they went out and got Coutinho this season. It's basically like the management saying, "I'm sorry, mate, you're not good enough." I mean, I look at that Bayern team actually, and I think I definitely take. Or actually, I'm going to say this, and he might not even be there anymore. I definitely take Jerome Boateng at centre back.
He's there.
He's 31. You know, he's that age where you can definitely get 2 or 3 more years out of him. But he's only played half of their Bundesliga games so far this season. I'd go and get Javi Martinez, again, struggling for minutes, that age where you can get 2 or 3 more years out of him, used to winning, bring them both over, fuck it, might as well. And then there are definitely options in that forward line as well. You might say Muller's a good option. Yeah, I don't know. There's some recruitment that we could do there, but I don't want to dwell too much on raiding Bayern Munich because I don't think there's players that are exactly going to be jumping over to us at the moment.
All right, I have an idea. We don't spend anything in January. We save that entire transfer chest. Everything that we were going to spend on whoever we were going to replace Pioli with next season, we just keep him, and we save that money. Yeah, basically. Yeah, you got where I'm going.
Damn it!
But
sorry.
He's going to be on a free. In his contract, he has the option to leave at the end of any season he wants for free, and it also just ends in 21. So, I mean, it's not going to happen, but why not?
What about James Rodriguez?
Wait, was that actually it? It was the Messi thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, it was in jest, like it wasn't a serious suggestion, obviously, but
James Rodriguez would be an interesting one. I mean, I would
He's
also
an
like us
player. We need a holding midfielder, but
yeah, if we are going to go, if we think that our problem is that link between the midfield and the attack, personally, I think we've got problems all over the pitch. But
yes.
he could work in theory. You know, he's playing quite a bit there. I mean, there's others that are at Real Madrid that I think are worth targeting. I wouldn't mind signing Bale, but I think it's going to be too costly, and his injury record perhaps proves that it wouldn't be a wise economic investment. It was an investment that Real Madrid could get away with, but not many other football clubs in the world can. Isco, though, is an interesting one. Brahim Diaz isn't getting much game time, and he's shown to be, quite a promising player.
Here's a list I just found of everyone whose contract ends at the end of the season. Toby Alderweireld, which I'd be for.
Yeah.
Eric Bailey from United. I'm down with that too. Willian, Pedro, yeah. David Silva, honestly, would still be beneficial to us. Obviously,
David Silva?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. Do it in a heartbeat. He would find Syria a piece of piss.
Like that. Nemanja Matic.
No.
Yeah, pass. Fernandinho.
Yes.
Matuidi.
Fernandinho, hard yes.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my
for
God,
sure.
yeah, but he's probably on like 10 mil a year salary wise. But Fernandinho would be fantastic for us. He's like the perfect regista. He combines Benacer's like intensity and pressing and stuff like that with what we think Belia is as a passer. And obviously he's played under Pep, so he comes with that winning mentality.
That's true. Mertens, which would be a huge boost for us, obviously. Cavani, Callejon, Gundogan, Thiago Silva, Chiellini. Imagine getting Chiellini on a free.
That would be
Oh my
hilarious.
God.
He's out. I think How long is he
injured?
out?
A minute, dude. He's done for a while.
I think, yeah, I'm sure there was some people who were saying when he got injured that he might have played his last game for Juve.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'd do that. I think they'd potentially give him an honorary 6-month deal or something just so he gets that final game or whatever. But yeah, that would be quite funny.
Yeah, and then the last two on this list say Modric and Cuadrado.
So Cuadrado is a no. Modric was the one that I was going to go for, who's the obvious one, but I don't like the idea as
Oh, Christian Eriksen as well. That's a big. I would go for him.
That's
in
a
a heartbeat.
no. I mean, that's not happening.
Oh,
I
it'll
think
never happen.
I think he goes to a PSG or a Real Madrid, or I said keep an eye on Bayern Munich for Eriksen. That just seems like such
Mario
a.
Götze.
Don't know. Is he still fat?
Yes. Yeah, I think he's got.
Yeah,
fat
no. Then
management.
I don't know though. I mean, he does kind of fit the bill in a way. He's a big upgrade on Çalhanoğlu, in my opinion. But I don't know.
His contract ends at the end of the season. Finally, get rid of him.
That goes that agenda again. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Fernandinho at this moment. I think Fernandinho would be the good.
I think he's the best for what we need. He's the best and smartest decision.
Yeah, it would be cool as well. It would be a cool signing to me.
Be cool signing. I'd buy his jersey.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of. He does wear Fernandinho, doesn't he? Because some of these Brazilian players wear like a really weird name on the back, like De Santos Silva or something. But no, he does wear Fernandinho. Yeah, I think that's everything. That's all the questions and stuff like that. Oh no, Daniel Ahmed actually asks, who do you think put the curse on Milan? Leonardo Bonucci, I think, is the answer to that.
I think it was Pirlo.
Oh, I was going to say whoever owns PSG. They ruined it for us by buying our whole fucking team.
Qatari investment fund.
Yeah,
there we go.
The Qataris.
The Qataris. Sorry,
So,
Qatari listeners.
Invade Qatar. Oh no.
Whole one.
Yeah, that's everything, boys. Any closing statements?
I think that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, cool. Right, I'd like to open the floor in case you've got a mic drop moment, but no, never mind. Pretty depressing episode, but full of rants, so I hope you found it entertaining, and who knows, we might be back in a week's time with us either in the relegation zone or back up in, making the charge towards the top end. Really don't know at the moment, but that's the beauty of supporting this club, I guess. But for the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle for some more explicit Milan-based rants. I've been joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, it's been a good time hanging out with you guys. One of these days we'll talk about a win, and you can find me on Twitter at Torgrud45. Madison, sign yourself off.
Oh, forgot about me again. What a typical week talking to you guys. You guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Madison_DT.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you in a week's time.
Patrick, mettila in mezzo Patrick, palla nostra, Suso, tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Gol! Alessio Romagnoli, gol! Alessio Romagnoli! Alessio! Il gol del capitano ancora all'ultimo, come Gilardino, detto ieri in conferenza.